All right, with unit conversion, it's all about finding the right number one and the right fraction. So, in order to do this, you always start with some kind of definition or some kind of equivalent statement, like 1 meter is 100 centimeters. And so, the way that this thing works out is if 1 meter equals 100 centimeters, I could divide both sides by 1 meter. And this right here would cancel out with that, and that would leave me with the number 1. It would leave me with no units because the meters cancel out with the meters, and no real numbers because the number cancels out with the number, and you're left with the number just 1. And apparently 1 is equal to 100 centimeters divided by 1 meter. So that's one option. The other option is you could, let's go with 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. You could divide both sides by 100 centimeters. And that would cancel this out, leaving 1 on the right hand side. And you would have 1 is equal to 1 meter over 100 centimeters. So from this equivalent statement that we had, 1 meter equals 100 centimeters, we end up getting two different kinds of fractions right here. One with the meters on the bottom and one with the centimeters on the bottom. Now, here's how we do this. Is we start off with our numbers like 1, 3, 2, 5, 4, 0. So that would be 132,540 centimeters. Always put the units on this. And you can kind of think of this as all being divided by 1 if you wanted to think of that as a fraction. I'm going to multiply this by the number 1. And if you multiply anything by the number 1, it doesn't change that number. So really all I'm doing when I'm converting units is I'm taking it from one style of units and putting it into a different thing, but I'm not changing the number at all because all I'm doing is multiplying by the number 1. And I'm going to choose a fraction. Now the question is, which fraction do I choose? Do I want to choose this one over here or the second one over here? And the way to do that is you look in the numerator of what you're originally starting with. And it's centimeters. So you want to have the same units in the denominator of the fraction that you're multiplying. So I know that I want centimeters on the bottom, making meters on top. And what I can do is I can go 100 centimeters and then 1 meter. That would be the fraction that I'm going to use. I'm going to use the second one. Mainly, the thing that I use to choose it is I know that I want the centimeters on the bottom. That's kind of what the tall tale sign is. Now what I want to do is convert from meters to kilometers. So that's another thing too, is I didn't do it in one big swoop to just go straight from 100 centimeters into kilometers. That sometimes is really tough, but I broke it up into two chunks. I said, well, if I start with centimeters, I'm going to go into meters, and then I'm going to go into kilometers from there. Now, what equivalent statement do I have? Well, I know that 1,000 meters is 1 kilometer. But the question is, so I need to make a fraction, and there's two options for a fraction. I can have the kilometers on the bottom or the meters on the bottom. And the question is, which one do I want? Well, over here I have meters on top, so I want meters on the bottom in my second fraction. So I have 1,000 meters. And that means 1 kilometer is on top. Now, we're going to cancel out the units. And look at the units. This centimeter over here on top is going to cancel out with that centimeter on the bottom. This meter over here on top is going to cancel out with that meter on the bottom. And the answer that I get is going to be some kind of number, blah, 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 kilometers. Because the only units that are left is kilometers. Now, what I need to do is I need to take 132,540 times 1 times 1 divided by 1 divided by 100 divided by 1,000. So that would be 132,540 times 1. I don't need to put that in the calculator. Times 1 again, I don't need to put that in the calculator. Divide by 1, I don't need to. But I should put in divide by 100. And I should also keep in the divide by 1,000. And so my answer is 1.3254. Now I know that the calculator only shows 1.3254, but the original part had an extra 0 over here, and when we go into significant figures, you're going to know that what I do is I want to keep this 0 over here. I'll explain to you why later. In fact, this would be a good problem to come back to. All right, let's do this one, 350 milligrams to kilograms. All right, 350 milligrams. You can do it over 1. And so I'm going to convert from milligrams to grams, and then I'll go from grams to kilograms. All right, so what do I want on the bottom? I want milligrams on the bottom, and I want grams on top. Like I said, I want to convert milligrams to grams. How many milligrams is in 1 gram? There are 1,000 milligrams, hence the word milli, as in like a millipede has 1,000 legs. I don't actually think it has 1,000 legs, but it has more legs than a centipede, and a centipede only has 100 legs. All right. Over here, the second conversion, I'm going to go from grams to kilograms, and there are 1,000 kilograms in 1, or 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram. So I can look at my units. Milligrams cancel out with milligrams, grams cancel out with grams, and kilograms is what I have left over, so that would be my answer. Now, here's a trick, and I'm not going to use the calculator to do this. Essentially, I need to divide it by 1 million, right? I need to take 350 divided by 1 million. 1 million has 6 zeros in it. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 350, and I'm going to divide it by a million, a 1 with 6 zeros. So all I need to do is move this decimal place to the left 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, what do I put here? Well, that would be extra zeros, because that's kind of a placeholder thing. And so I have the answer that I get is 0.000350. Now, in scientific notation, what you want to do is you want to make it so that the first number is not a 0, and then you have a decimal and numbers after that. So I want to go 3.50. But what did I have to do in order to make this number up here look like 3.50? Well, what I had to do was I had to move the decimal place 4 times to the right. Now, anytime you're multiplying, or anytime you want to move the decimal place to the right, you need to multiply by some number, and I'll multiply by 1,000. Or, no, I'll multiply by 10,000, because I needed 4 times. I want a 1 with 4 zeros. We don't like writing it 10,000 or whatever, so what we do is we write it like this, times 10 to the 4th power, and it just counts the number of zeros you have. So this is my scientific notation that I have for converting that. Oops, oops, oops. I'm sorry, I screwed this up. I did this wrong, and so what you're going to see is probably some kind of jump and a skip, and I'll copy and paste until where I didn't mess it up. But let me figure out, or let me show you what I did wrong and explain it to you. This thing right here, this is the correct answer. But the way to explain this, and I'm sorry, I did this a little bit backwards. I guess I was nervous at the very end. Is I'll show it to you in just a second. All right. So in making this number into scientific notation, what I want to do is I want to go 3.50. But 3.50 is not the same as 0.000350. What would I need to do to make this 3.50 into the actual answer that it should represent? Well, I take this decimal place and I move him 4 times to the left. And in order to do that, so what I would do is I would say 3.50 times 10 to the negative 4th power. So that is my correct answer in the correct scientific notation.